So we are a small curatorial team, and we have the joy of being able to program artists across the whole of the Underground network. And so we do about 3-4 big projects a year that are generally temporary projects, so at a specific station. We commission artists for every cover of the tube map, so every time you're picking up one of those pieces of paper, it's got an artist's work on the front. And we do major permanent commissions as well, so over the long term we might do huge new commissions at new stations. So for me, it's about site-specific commissioning. So we have a site, we have an artist, we want them to respond to that site. And that might mean the architectural site, but also the social structure. How are people, how are travellers, customers interacting in that space? What are the sight lines? How might you grab people's attention? So site-specific commissioning for us means we think carefully about the site, we think carefully about the artist, and then we ask them to develop something for us. But we do have that joy of doing it on a curatorial model, so we let artists develop their ideas. And that does lead to really unexpected outcomes. And I think that's where part of the kind of mad joy comes from doing commissioning, that you don't always know what you're going to get. So we asked an amazing artist called Heather Phillipson to do a project for us at Gloucester Road Station, and it's a disused platform. And that disused platform runs directly along the District and Circle line, so you can see it from the train and also when you're standing on a platform. We wanted her to create something that responded to that architecture, which is Victorian arches, and we wanted something sculptural because it's about the only place we're ever allowed to do something sculptural, because otherwise most of the time it will get in the way of customers, but here it's a disused platform. And she came forward with a proposal that's basically around giant eggs and giant chickens, right? And it's completely unexpected. It's cartoonish in one sense, but it's actually very serious in another sense. So Heather's kind of concepts on the world, she's a poet, so she often also, as well as an artist, she often almost puts together artworks that are a bit like a poem, and they have kind of metaphor, some of which is really obvious, and some of like giant eggs, and some of which is more subtle. So the eggs are kind of being cracked and whipped and cut open, and there's a video work within it as well. And what the work's actually about is this idea of kind of consumerism, the consumerism of food production lines, the kind of waste, the sense in which the egg is this really obvious symbol of, well, it's new life, right? That's what an egg is. It's new life, it's new beginnings. But also, we put it in a sandwich, like it's both a being and a non-being. It's a potential being, it's in mayonnaise. It's kind of got this innate weirdness about it, about what an egg is, and the way in which, of course, we intervene so much in chickens' life cycle. You often hear people talk about now that we live in the age, this Anthropocene, like the symbol of it is the chicken bone, because we eat so much fried chicken now in a way that we've never done before. So it's got this, on one sense, it's like a mad three-dimensional sculptural diorama of chickens, eggs with video work within it. And yeah, I think it does surprise people. It does link to the Victorian architecture really interestingly. She saw it as a platform. So you're moving along a platform, and there was a video game called Chucky Egg that she knew from the 1980s, which kind of was about like chickens going around with hen harriers trying to catch them on a platform, that sense of a platform video game. And she's used the kind of brickwork with this lurid green brickwork behind it. So again, it feels, some people might say that has nothing to do with sight, but actually she's thinking about it kind of conceptually as a site, and this idea of a video game platform, and that someone wins and someone loses as you go along, and maybe us humans are now losing to the big giant chickens and the big giant eggs that make up her panorama. Well, we work probably in the most restrictive environment you could possibly imagine working in. The fire restrictions are extremely tough after the big King's Cross fire in the 80s. Everything changed on the Underground. So we couldn't really work in a more restrictive environment. So we try and come up with new ideas all the time on how we can get around that. So Heather Phillipson's sculpture that I was just talking about is an interesting one, because we had to use sort of fire-safe plastics in it, which was really hard to mould, but we managed to achieve. We've done some really interesting new technologies. So we worked with an architectural design group, also artists, called Assemble, who won the Turner Prize in 2015, and they wanted to relook at the idea of ceramic tiling, and created for us a sort of clay tile that had embedded dye the whole way through. So instead of having a ceramic glaze on the top like a traditional tiling, it was embedded through the whole tile, and they created this basically new technology that was handmade tiles. And we've got an amazing work up at Seven Sisters Station, where we took a disused shop that was falling down, they rebuilt it as this beautiful structure. We clad it in these mad tiles, yellow, green, blue, all these different colours, and now it's a community-run coffee shop space just out the side of the station. So that's a kind of example where we tested ourselves, actually with quite a traditional material, but with something unexpected. This year we're dealing with the idea of being on edge, and this is the sense of our politically complicated times. So we've got a great work that we just launched at Brixton Station by an artist called Elisa Nisenbaum. She's got this idea about the ethics of portraiture, who gets to have their portrait taken. And she's made a work of TfL and Brixton Station staff that's over the station entrance. It's the most amazing, exquisite portrait. It has the cleaners, it has tube drivers, and again, it's this kind of joyful, who gets to belong in a city and who gets overlooked. We've got a big project launching this summer with the French artist Laure Provost, who has just, off the back of Venice Biennial, is having an amazing amount of coverage right now. Really brilliant French artist that works out of London. And she's doing a series of signs and mad pieces that are going to be all over the network through the summer. And we've got a couple of big projects at the end of this year, one with Denzel Forrester, who's a British Grenadian artist, a painter, again, that's doing the most phenomenal stuff. Look out Westminster Station around November, because we're going to have an Afro-future takeover of Westminster Station, just to annoy the politicians mostly. So we're taking the red, white and blue of the roundel, and we're taking those colours out of the British flag, and rather we're going to have these black, gold, greens, Afro-future colours, and it's going to take over the whole station. It's by a British artist, British Ghanaian artist called Larry Akiampong. It's interesting, TfL can be quite a conservative organisation in some ways. The very fact that it has a permanent art team actually, though, points to its radicalism, I think, because to support us and to stay with us, and this programme's been running now for up to nearly 20 years, it started in about 2000, so to have actually supported us through this, I think shows a real confidence of TfL, and it's something I keep trying to say. Every time I come up with a new difficult thing, I think it shows TfL in a brilliant light, because it shows it wants to engage with complex issues around us. So we've done works about refugee crisis, or we've done works about, as you talk about this kind of ideas of belonging and kind of that maybe point to ideas of exclusion or racism within the city. I think right now we have a mayor that's very keen on talking about the ideas of representing diversity, and we all know, Londoners, this is what London is as well. You know, London, 40% of people who live in London weren't born in the UK. You know, it's an incredibly internationalist, diverse city, and that feels really important to me in terms of the sorts of stuff that we're programming. But also, if you want to stay relevant, you've got to do something a little bit interesting. If we just played safe all the time, that might make some people within TfL happy because they'd never have a controversy, but also we'd never push forward, we'd never be part of a different debate. We probably wouldn't be having this chat now, you know, because actually it's about getting that TfL is this amazing organisation that cares about its customers in all sorts of different ways, and does that through doing all kinds of great projects, you know, great projects with the community, great, you know, projects in infrastructure, but it also has a long-term commitment to art that comes from, it's in its DNA, because in the early 20th century, they started working with artists, and it's actually developed what London Underground is now. So we've got to stick to having that avant-garde approach. It's an incredibly big responsibility to think that you're programming for London, for Londoners, you know. We did do the Londoners Open campaign, and that was about, I took that campaign really, really seriously for a couple of reasons, because it meant a lot to me personally, you know, in terms of representing diverse London. But also, it was really important to me that it wasn't done tokenistically, or that it wasn't like a marketing campaign. Actually, like, what is the difference between art and a marketing campaign? And to me, it's quite a big one. And so it was very carefully constructed. We worked with 10 artists, and we really wanted to have a kind of real gender split, international artists, people that knew London, people that didn't, people that maybe worked in forms that are very engaging, like David Shrigley does sort of funny sketches, and he did a brilliant London is Open with the world around it. He did that for us in like 48 hours or something. It was amazing. But also we worked with, in that case, you know, with an artist like Tanya Bagheera. Tanya Bagheera is an artist that, she's Cuban. She keeps getting arrested by the Cuban state, basically for pushing a pretty simple message of freedom of speech. She has an artwork which is basically getting people to stand up, that she tried to do in Havana, just saying what they think, and that's what led to her being arrested. And I think she does a lot of work with international migrant groups internationally in terms of rights for them. So you're trying to like balance up these different kind of tones, I guess, really, to say this is what art can do. Art can actually reach across all these different tones and create something that people will read on loads of different levels, but I hope will kind of grab everyone in some way.